people can hear, oh, 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious, but not take the next step of going to appreciate the profound ramification of that. And that's why I often say you can make your subconscious mind your greatest asset, or it can remain your greatest nemesis.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I am Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with John Mitchell. John is here to, I would say, give us the secret for creating success. There's a book referenced here in your bio, John, Think and Grow Rich, that I think a lot of people in the entrepreneur world know. But as you have stated here, that maybe there's some pieces of the puzzle left out of that book. So I'm excited to hear all that you're going to share with us today. I'm excited to hear about your background, and just really grateful that you're here. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me today.
Well, Jason, I'm proud to be here. And I think a lot of your audience is going to find what we're going to talk about interesting. But I think the people that are driven will likely find it life-changing.
Yeah, I that would be amazing. So let's start though with you. Let's tell them about your background, a bit about yourself, kind of what got you to where you are today, and then we'll dive in from there.
Okay. Well, when I turned 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I started out my career as a CPA, became an entrepreneur at 30 in real estate development, as it were. And in my 30s and 40s, I was like in 7 different businesses. But Jason, when I hit 50, just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I had 2 goals in my life: to make enough money so I didn't have to work, and to find the woman of my dreams. And on the money, Jason, it's interesting. When I hit 50, I realized I had to start netting $1 million a year. If I wanted the exceptional life I dreamed of, I had to start netting $1 million a year. And I had a history of only netting about $200,000 a year. And then on the girl, at 50, I'd never been married, although there was a lot of interviewing. But well, I called it interviewing. My friends called it begging. But at 50, so I'm not as successful in both the key areas of my life. And I don't know, maybe it's happened 3 months after I turned 50. This pearl of wisdom comes to me to find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life. And I'm thinking, that's a pretty good idea. And so I do a little research and I discovered something that really blew me away. I discovered that there's one book that's been read by 150 million people. It's the top book in the world on success by a factor of 10. And that book is Think and Grow Rich, which I bet you've read, right?
I a little bit embarrassed to say that one I've not read yet, and it's definitely on my list. But yeah, it's I think that it's often sort of spoken about in just exactly the way you just described it, that it's like a hugely impactful book to many, and of all the of all the self-development books and everything, that one has escaped me so far. But yeah, you've reminded me to get it ordered.
Well, and I'll say this: you can read that book and not know what the secret is, and you're frustrated. But if you read the book knowing what the secret is, it jumps out at you all over the place. And I mean, I'm biased, but I think that you're fine. Let me explain the secret to you, and then you go read it.
Sure,
But
that'd be great.
so anyway, I'm sort of blown away that there's one book above all other books on success. And so I rush out the next morning and buy the book and read the book. And then I discover the problem. The book says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives us half of the secret. It's on the reader to figure out the other half. Well, Jason, I'm bummed out and I mope around for like 3 weeks and then one day just get up and go, John, come on, man up, figure out the damn secret. And so I immersed myself in the book and probably read it 20 times over about 2 months. And ultimately, I figure out the secret and a 12-minute a day technique to apply it. And so I started applying it to a new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage field. And suddenly my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling to where 4 years later I was making 25 times the $200,000 a year I was making the prior 20 years. But, and Jason, of course, I felt so blessed. But what was particularly cool was I could see why it was happening. I mean, I was playing the game of life at a higher level. I could do things I couldn't do before. I had a level of control over myself I'd never experienced before. And I just became fascinated that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success. And so about 10 years ago, I finally had enough money so I didn't have to work. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to share this with the world. And a few months after I sold my company, I met the former chancellor and president here at the University of Texas. And he says, hey, you got to teach this at the University of Texas, and why don't we teach it together? And that sort of led to being introduced to the athletic director who said, I want to learn this 12-minute a day technique. And that led to becoming the mental coach for the 18 head coaches. And so today I teach my methodology both to students, a lot of them are athletes, but students through my class, the science of success, the science of leveraging yourself. And I teach my methodology to adults by licensing my methodology to coaches and through my book.
Okay, that's great. I'm even more intrigued because I've always played sports myself and always thought that there's a really big correlation between athletics and business, and kind of the approach to success in either field. So the fact that you were using this technique at the level of University of Texas athletics, which is a high level university, I'm definitely intrigued to hear more.
Well, you find this interesting. We're proud of this. We've won the Directors Cup 3 of the last 4 years, which is given to the top athletic program in the country based on wins and losses in all the sports. And so my focus is to make us the gold standard for the mental and mental training side of sports.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is such a, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it always was, but I think maybe increasingly more recognized what a big, I guess, piece of the success in athletics comes from just being mentally strong as much as physically strong.
That's a great point. I mean, I was telling the athletic director, I said, more success is not going to come from better weight training or nutrition. It's going to come from improving mindset. I mean, it's clear as a bell to me.
Yeah. It's I think it's at this point fairly well documented. Some of the most famous athletes in the world have some of the mental health struggles that they've had, but what they've done and gone through to overcome them, and just I think it's fascinating area for me. So I guess tell us more. Tell us a bit about kind of what you're giving to these students, maybe even just where you're starting with them.
Well, here's maybe what I think is the lesson to my story, which looks at it from a 30,000-foot view. But I think the lesson is that you got to work smarter, not harder. And you do that by understanding how the human mind works. And when you do, it gives you an edge over everybody else. And so if I could, can I ask your audience a question I think that'll be helpful?
Oh yeah, please.
So, how do you create success in your life? Just think about that. How do you create success in your life? When I am in person with people and I ask them that question, oftentimes they've never been asked that question, and so they sort of stumble around for the answer, and ultimately they come up with something, and I recap what they say, and then the more pertinent question is, so how's that working for you? Well, oftentimes not that well, and and that's frustrating to people. And I see that the vast majority of people are just winging life. They don't really have a way of doing life. They're just getting up, doing the best they can, and the effect of winging life is they recreate their past. And when you sort of dig into that just a little bit deeper, you see that as humans, we all have two fundamental problems. First, uh, we're innately wired for survival, which causes the vast majority of our thoughts to be fear based. And then the second problem is that that 95% of our daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And so when we open our eyes each morning, hey, we're on autopilot most of the day, innately wired to be fear based, which feeds that negative inner voice. And it's a lousy way to live. And I can say that because I lived that way for 50 years. But and you have nothing pulling you forward to your desired life. Well, so what's the solution? Well, it's feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And once you do that, then the right actions start happening automatically. And you have this powerful force pulling you forward to your desired life. And it only takes 12 minutes a day. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think the 12 minutes a day part, I guess, is where I would maybe further push you, because I think, well, maybe sounds a little too good to be true, but I think that's but maybe also I'm overcomplicating things, and I'd love to be able to, sort of make it 12 minutes a day that I
Well,
can uh, sort of fix mindset with.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I think you're right. I think it sounds like a gimmick, doesn't it?
I
There's
mean,
it has that.
yes and no. It sounds like I would assume there's got to be more to it than just 12 minutes, but I'm
Well,
very
yes,
interested to hear.
and I'll the actually the 12 minutes a day is the easy part. The hard part is creating the clarity that you're going to feed yourself. But I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up, Jason, because um, it we live in this world of get rich quick schemes, and I can tell you this is the opposite of that. I mean, to be able to, and I feel blessed that this is the case, that the University of Texas's business school, which is rated one of the top five in the country, allows me to teach their students this, and obviously it's been vetted at the highest level. So uh, if people think that this is a gimmick, ignore this at your peril because it's powerful. It's life changing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that probably, I mean, that's a good point, because I do think a lot of messaging in the, kind of mindset space gets dismissed. Like get dismissed in the sense like it won't work for me, or that's too,
Right,
uh, I don't know what too woo woo. I think people will say, but I
right.
think that the reality is, if you're actually willing to give it a chance and try, you can. I do believe you can make quite a bit of difference in the way you approach things and think about in a pretty short period of time relative to
Right.
what we might think.
Well, the reality is this is all science based. If you're
Mm.
human, this works. I've never seen it not work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally science based. And I think one thing that might be helpful is let me jump to explaining what the secret is. And maybe the best way to do that is to tell you a story about how I discovered the secret and I'll I want to share something that is personal and let me be vulnerable if that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
so when I turned 50, there was a little more going on with me than just feeling the scarcity of time. My mom was dying of pancreatic cancer, and she was probably in the hospital like for 8 weeks, and this is in Dallas. And so every day I'd go see her after work, and I'd hold her hand, and I'd love on her, and Jason, it was everything I could do to keep from breaking down in front of her. And so I'd spend 2 hours with her, and then I'd leave, and I'd go in the cold, dark hospital parking lot and get in my car and just break down and cry for like 45 minutes every single night before I could even drive home. And again, this is going on for like 8 weeks. And of course, I was feeling the impending loss of my mom, but I just knew that there was something deeper going on, and because I had never experienced this level of emotion every single night, and it was just excruciating. And so, what I saw was going on, maybe not quite at the moment, but as I've reflected on it, I just felt like I was letting my mom down with my life because my mom and dad gave me everything. They sent me to Jesuit High School in Dallas when they didn't really have the money, and they sent me to the University of Texas, and I didn't have to pay for anything. Yet, night after night, I'm sobbing in my car because I just felt like I was letting my mom down. I mean, she believed in me, she invested in me, and all I had to show for it was an average life. And I hated the average life because I just knew I was capable of so much more. And so, it's just, this is going on night after night. And meanwhile, every night I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. And so what I ultimately realized was the pain I was feeling was like rocket fuel and causing me to go deeper than any other person on the planet ever had to figure out the full secret. And so does that make sense? Is that you follow that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think unfortunately, a lot of I guess a lot of greatness journeys, success journeys can be almost rooted in something painful. Something that makes us want to change our lives in some way, and so I think that's not an uncommon, I guess, origin story, if you will.
Right. Well, and as it turned out during this time, there was one pivotal night where really everything changed. And on this particular night, as every other night, um, I would go see my mom, and I go in the hospital parking lot and cry my eyes out, and so this night was no different. But for some reason, Jason, this night felt different. It was snowing in Dallas, and it doesn't snow very often in Dallas. And so, as I'm starting to drive home, I see those big snowflakes hitting my car windshield, and so it just felt different. So I get home and I plop myself down in my nice comfy chair, and I start to read a few pages of Think and Grow Rich. Now, keep in mind this is probably the 20th time I'm reading it, but on this particular night, I read that your success comes down to your daily actions, the cumulative effect of your daily actions in your career. in your health, in your marriage, is what creates success in your life. Well, I never I never thought of success in such simple terms, but I bought that. And then I read essentially that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. Let me say that again. 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. Well, I read that and I'm like, that's interesting. And so by now I'm ready to go to bed. I'm tired, and so I wash my face and brush my teeth and get in bed. But Jason, I'm laying there and I can't stop thinking about what I just read. That 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And then as I'm laying there, it hits me. I don't control my daily actions. Yet those daily actions are the very thing that's determining my success in life. And that moment was like, it felt like being hit by lightning. You know, I sit up in bed and I'm start feeling this unique moment in my life, and I see the snow falling in my backyard, and then I go, well, wait a minute. Uh, if 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious, uh, what controls them then? If I don't control them, well, it's my subconscious mind. It's my autopilot, and the subconscious mind is only influenced by repetition, as clearly explained in Think and Grow Rich. And so I'm starting to realize, I'm like, oh, I see. All this time, I've been only controlling my intentions, not my actions. Keep in mind, every intention has to have actions associated with it. And so all I've been doing is controlling my intentions, not my actions. And once I got that, that's when it all sort of clicked. I realized that I wasn't underperforming because I lacked intelligence or drive. Rather, I was underperforming because of a false belief about success that I had had for 50 years. And that false belief was that I was controlling my daily actions. But finally, now I was getting my eyes open to the truth. My autopilot controlled my daily actions. And further, that autopilot was innately fear based and reactive from being wired for survival. And so, as this all sort of is swirling in my head and I'm absorbing it, then the full secret of Think and Grow Rich comes to me. And here it is. What you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And let me say that again. What you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that means is you take your life and you create immense clarity about it. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And so once you create this clarity, then you put it on a template that I created that was created many years ago, and and that makes it so it's succinct enough that it only takes 12 minutes a day to read. And then you feed that to yourself every day. And after you do that approximately 21 days, three things happen. The first thing that happens is you feel immense control over your life. And of course you would. You're feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself every day. Of course you'd feel control. And then the second thing you feel is confidence, which is a direct result of that control. And you're feeling lighter because you're creating so much order in the mind. You feel way less stress. That's the effect of, the mind thrives on order. So when you're feeding that level of order to your mind, it de-stresses you. And then the third thing you experience is after 21 days, the science kicks in and the magic happens and the right actions start happening automatically without thinking. And so you just begin playing the game of life at a higher level, and it's impacting all three key areas of your life at the same time: your career, your romantic relationship, and your health.
Yeah, that I love how the science plays together on that. I think that the getting more control of the subconscious mind, and I mean, that's realistically, that's probably basically what mindset is, right? Because it's we can any at any given moment we can tell ourselves something positive, something geared towards a successful outcome. But as you mentioned, like that's at any given moment. And so if the rest of the time you're, you know, the inner the inner dialogue is sort of, I guess, contrary to that, then that's ultimately gonna it's gonna overpower it. And so yeah,
Right.
changing this, using that system to change what happens when you're not thinking about it is uh, you know, tremendously powerful. So John, you mentioned that you had created like a template for this. How do you don't have to give away everything, but kind of what's that process look like for people when they're building out this template?
Right.
Is it I don't know, do you just sort of create a whole life idea, or is this just you focus on kind of
Well,
components? How do you typically have people approach?
right. Well, let me explain it. So, the template is essentially 2 pages. Front page is the ideal you in the 5 key areas of your life: yourself, your health, your romantic relationship, your spirituality, and your career. So, front page is ideal you in those 5 key areas of your life. Then on the second page is the improvements you want in each area of your life, along with your goals. Now, you're going to have a goal for your career, a goal for your health, and a goal for your romantic relationship. And you're essentially living your life quarter by quarter. And so you'll have a new goal for each quarter. And so you'll define, here's the goal, here's the why behind the goal, here's the 4 or 5 key behaviors associated with the goal, and then the time frame and measurement. And and one thing I see, Jason, today is that when I say to people, the central concept of the top book in the world on success is to create immense clarity and feed the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day, people go, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then they go, when they think a little deeper, they're like, whoa, I don't know exactly how to create that level of clarity in
Yeah.
each area of my life. I get the 30,000 foot view of it, but how to do it, I'm at a loss for. Well, no problem, because I created an AI algorithm a little over a year ago, where all the person has to do is answer about 50 questions, and I give them a sample answer. I even have incorporated Chat GPT to help, and they answer those 50 questions, press a button, and 10 seconds later, my template is customized to their unique life. And one thing I think you would find interesting in my now, this template has been in development 20 years. And over the last few years, from my work as the mental coach at the University of Texas, I met arguably the top 3 sports psychologists in the world, and each one of them gave me something really valuable. Like I met with Trevor Moawad, Nick Saban's mental coach, and Michael Gervais that worked with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, and each one of them gave me something really valuable. So it's sort of a work in progress, but it's a powerful tool to apply my methodology that makes it super simple for people.
Yeah, that's great to, I guess, combine that technology with it, because I do think that is sometimes the hardest part. Like the asking asking people what does your ideal day or your ideal life look like? I don't think most people have actually thought about it, or that feels like too big of a question to even answer, because maybe we don't think that we can have it. So it's like to even try to think about it is almost seems like it would be a disappointment. So I think that the idea of breaking that down into those components and having um, a set of questions that can help people actually articulate and visualize what that sort of ideal life looks like for them is just such a, I gotta imagine that really helps people get started and move in the right direction with something like that.
Right. Well, and think about this, Jason. Um, the most pivotal thing I ever learned in my life was that 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. That truly, that's the most pivotal thing I ever learned in my life. But I see that a lot of times when I go on podcasts, I will ask the host if they believe that, and and they will go, "Yeah, I do believe it." And then I go, "Well, what are you doing to impact it?" Well, they're not doing anything. And what that tells me is they don't really get it. And if you, and this is interesting because I make everybody that I work with do this. Go to Google and just Google in what percentage of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And in big dark letters, it'll say 95%. Now, for me, it was easy to connect the dots. If your daily actions determine your success, and 95% of them are unconscious, come on. I mean, your subconscious mind controls your life, and if you want a higher level of success, you got to gain control of those unconscious daily actions. You buy that? Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. It, it's. I mean, I laughed when you said the that you ask people and they believe you, and then you ask what are you doing to impact that. And I mean, it's true. Like I don't. Um, I It's hard to take those steps. Like it's hard to say I'm gonna do those things, almost turning your subconscious to conscious, into a conscious effort of impacting. So I mean, yeah, it makes total sense. But I also probably fall right into that same category of I'm not doing much to try and to try and impact it, or as much as I could.
Well, let me make a suggestion why I think that's the case. Today we are shallow thinking, driven by social media. And so, and we hear all sorts of things, and we hear all sorts of stats, and people hear it and they sort of understand it, but they're operating at such a shallow level that they're not really getting it. And that's why people can hear, oh, 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious, but not take the next step of going to appreciate the profound ramification of that. And that's why I often say you can make your subconscious mind your greatest asset, or it can remain your greatest nemesis. If you do nothing, then you're going to stay fear-based and reactive, and you're going to feed that negative inner voice and live uh, a less than optimal life, and all that creates the average life. But if you want the exceptional life, you got to grab a hold of that subconscious mind and rewire your autopilot and rewire it for success as opposed to survival. And um, then the right actions start happening automatically, and you have this powerful force pulling you forward to your desired life. And again, only takes 12 minutes a day.
Yeah. Where does the 12 minutes come in? How do you like what makes you, I guess, what's the process that makes it 12 minutes is in that because I guess, and my point is where I'm going with this is if we did it for 30 minutes or 60 minutes, do we have better control of our subconscious mind, or how do you tell me a little bit about why that time?
Jason, that's a good question. It's 12 minutes approximately. Some people it might be 14 minutes, 15 minutes, but and you can you can either read your succinct articulation of your life using my life GPS template, or you can listen to it. Some people prefer to listen
Okay.
to it, and but that's the reason TED Talks are 18 minutes. If it's too long,
Yeah.
you lose people. And so there's something that it just evolved to be about 12 minutes, and that was enlightening. And I'll give you an example of how this works. You'll find this interesting, a practical example. And this pertains to eating and health. And so a couple of years ago, a client of mine came to San Antonio. He lived in Portland and so he comes to San Antonio with his girlfriend, and he says to me, "Why don't you get Ginger and meet us in San Antonio, and we'll have dinner." Well, and one thing I meant to say earlier, from doing this methodology, I met my wife within 2 years of methodology. So anyway, Ginger's out and about, and I tell her, just meet me at Starbucks at 2 o'clock. So it's around Christmas. I get there a little early, and so I decide to have a brownie. What the heck? It's Christmas. And so I start eating the brownie. Now, keep in mind, in my life GPS template, I'm articulating to myself that I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth. Well, I'm aware of it. I'm aware it doesn't taste very good, but that doesn't stop me from finishing it.
Yeah.
So I finish it. The Ginge arrives. We jump in my car. We drive to San Antonio, and I tell her, babe, I sort of lost my appetite, and I don't feel very good. But we go, and then I come home, and Jason, I've changed one word in my template from I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth to I evaluate everything I put in my mouth. Well, the next night we go have Mexican food with her son, and I order tacos. The tacos come, they're not very good, but this time I'm evaluating everything I put in my mouth, and I slide those tacos away, don't have another bite, and all that happens unconsciously. And when I was laying in bed that night, I'm like, boy, if that's not a superpower where you can get yourself to take the right actions automatically without thinking, boy, that clearly is a superpower. But that's an example of how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine it being extremely powerful, and having that just, well, yeah, like you said, just getting kind of control of that, subconscious mind, I think is got to be, I mean, effectively you've got 95% more control of your of your daily
Right,
actions, and that's ultimately, like, that's not a small percentage. You're not gaining a little bit. Like, that's a very, very
right.
impactful, meaningful number. So I think uh, it is definitely a very powerful step to be taken. Excuse me.
And keep in mind, Jason, you're not changing the 95-5. It's always
Yeah.
5% of your daily actions are conscious, 95 are unconscious. You're just gaining control over them.
Right.
So again, you're not increasing the percentage that is conscious.
Yeah.
And it's probably worth explaining to your audience how the human mind works, because once I grasped this, everything changed for me. And so here's how the human mind works. Conscious mind sets your intention and is influenced by logic. Subconscious mind controls your daily actions, or 95% of them, and it's only influenced by repetition. And so the classic example of that is losing weight. Well, conscious mind sets the intention to lose weight based on the logic of the health benefits. But people fail to lose weight not from lack of intention, but lack of taking control of their daily actions. They're eating, they're exercising. And so that's the power of when you feed the succinct articulation of your desired life, and it's articulating the key behaviors in your health, in your career, in your romantic relationship. Then those right actions start happening automatically, and you're just playing the game of life at a much higher level.
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes total sense. I think it's got to be. Um, I I love the idea of how much science plays into things like mindset and
Right.
success, because I mean, it's easy to blow it off as, something made up, but the reality is this is exactly how our brains work. It's how our everything. If you know the science behind, trying to achieve these things, then I think it is, at least for someone like me, that part of it matters. I think some people maybe don't care if there's science or not, and they're happy to use it to their advantage. But I
Right.
do think having the science explanation is extremely compelling there. So I love that it's really founded in the way our minds truly work. Very, very
Right.
interesting stuff.
Well, I'm sure a lot of your audience goes, well, how the heck did your income go up 25 times? What really made that happen?
Yeah.
And let me explain why that happened. Um, so, and maybe this is because I was a CPA in my prior life. Uh, I was very observant about the process. I wanted to see why things worked, just that analytical mind. And so when I'm at in my mid 50s and I'm blessed to be making $5 million plus a year, I'm like, whoa, what is different than the prior 20 years of making 200 grand a year?
Yeah.
And what I realized is that it was really a combination of a couple of things. First of all, I saw that there were three fundamental, what I would call high performance skills that I was doing in my mid 50s that I wasn't doing in my 30s and 40s. And one of them was I was highly organized. I mean, a 9 or 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, where I would plan my day the night before. I'd time block my day, and I would identify my top three priorities. Well, and I don't know how you feel about this, but if you're not a 9 or 10, you're not going to be highly successful. It's just not going to happen. So that was the first skill. The second skill I developed was a technique that a lot of the top entrepreneurs in the world do. It's this idea of deep thinking 2 times a week. Deep thinking, and I mean, Bill Gates does this. Elon Musk does this, and I developed basically a very simple three-step process. It's 30 minutes of deep thinking 2 times a week. Well, I wasn't doing that in my 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is I became a conduit of learning using a system where the learning was not only consistent every week, but it was strategic relative to what I wanted to accomplish. Well, I wasn't doing that in my 30s and 40s. I was too busy for personal growth, as unenlightened as that is. And
Yeah.
so I saw that, okay, so I was doing those three things. And what was powerful was because I now understood how the human mind works, I had control over myself to a level I'd never had before. So now I could do those things. I didn't even know really about those things in my 30s and 40s, and probably couldn't have done them even if, or couldn't have done them consistently even if I'd known them. But when I knew about them in my 50s, boy, I could do them easily because I knew how the human mind works. Then the other thing that was going on was that I saw that I broke my business down into 6 components. I was like, I would feed to myself every day. Here's my business plan. Here's my strategy for success. Here's the 2 or 3 things that move the needle. Here's where I want my business to be in 3 years. Here's the 4 or 5 milestones to get there. And here's the linchpin issue to go to the next level. Well, I'm feeding that to myself every day, and I'm understanding all those things at a deeper and deeper level. And as I understand them deeper, I go into the template and change it. Again, the template changes as you change. And so that's exactly why my income went up by 25 times, was because I was doing things I never could do before. And I had such a deep understanding of my business. Whereas most people have a business plan that sits on the shelf, I'm feeding my business plan and all those other things to myself every day. And it just, I was playing the game of being an entrepreneur at a higher level.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I think the piece about, sort of feeding it to yourself every day is often missed, right? I think just that consistency. I mean,
Right.
consistency is the thing that you hear. Back to sort of this sports analogy. I mean, consistency is the thing that you hear about from realistically any great athlete with longevity. Tom Brady always comes to mind because I'm originally from Boston and lifelong Patriots fan, and so huge fan of Tom Brady.
Right.
But not just, I mean, because of what he did for the team, but like the things, the way that he sort of talks about what he did to be so committed to being so good for so long. And I think that's it's interesting because a lot of sports careers are pretty short lived. And it's just a whole nother level of commitment and consistency that gets you to be that successful for that long, whether that's a Tom Brady or Alex Ovechkin I think
Right.
broke Wayne Gretzky's record. But I mean, he's been playing at a high level for a very, very long time in the sports world. And then, but if you think about business, I mean, realistically, you want to do it for that long or longer, right? The idea is to create
Yeah.
a business and a level of success that isn't just 10 years or even 20 years. Like we're hoping for 30, 40 years in these businesses. So it's got to be something that you've really committed to creating a system. And then you mentioned for you that tends to change quarterly, or even the example about eating the brownies where you went home and changed a word. um, it it evolves. It has to evolve over time too, because you're going to have different
Right.
goals. You're going to have different focuses at varying levels. So I think it's but I do think it's having that framework in place that you're just making small tweaks to, and not sort of trying to reinvent the wheel every time you feel like you've had a setback. I think it's just staying kind of in that same zone the whole time.
Well, think about this. This is my personal philosophy. If you do life like everybody else, you're going to get the average life.
Mhm.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
And my lesson in life was you got to work smarter, not harder. I worked harder than all my friends, and all that produced was 200 grand a year. And I was thankful for that, but I just knew I was capable of so much more. And I'm like, well, if everybody else is just winging life, then don't wing life. I mean, this is an actual way of doing life. And one of the things I see today in the success and human achievement field is that there's a lot of brilliant people in the field, but all they're doing is affecting people's intentions. They say, well, do this strategy, do that strategy. Well, people have strategies coming out their ears. In fact, they probably have great strategies coming out their ears. What they need is to make great strategies show up in their thoughts and actions automatically without thinking. And that's what I bring, I think, to the success and human achievement field is the ability to move intentions into you taking the actions to make those intentions a reality. And so that's my contribution to the field, I believe.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I think
And,
it's
and
great.
I and I'll tell you something you would find interesting, and I know your audience will find this interesting. A few years ago, I decided I'm going to go show this to the top expert in the world on success, whoever he or she is. And so this is like 5 years ago. I decided I'm going to show this to Darren Hardy. And so I fly out to California and bring the ginge with me. And the moment comes to sit down with Darren. I bring my template and I put it in his hand and I explain how it worked. And he looks at it and he goes, "John, this is really good." But he says, "People aren't going to spend 12 minutes a day on this." And I'm like, "Darren, how the hell can that be?" I mean, this 25x my income. Time Magazine did a cover story on the science behind it. And we're applying the central concept of the top book of the world on success to people's lives. I mean, what do you mean they're not going to spend 12 minutes a day on this? And he sort of kicks back and smiles. He says, "John, I've been in the success business a long time. And the dirty little secret is that more success is merely a preference for the vast majority of people, merely a preference." He says, "That's 98% of people. What you've got is only for the 2%. The 2% that are really driven, where more success is a necessity." And that was life changing for me, for him to say that, because previous to that, I'm like, well, this is for everybody. Everybody wants to be more successful. We live in a success oriented culture. Everybody wants to be more successful. And then from that moment on, I thought, oh, I'm just going to show this to the 2%. And as that evolved, I'm like, well, let me just go find people like me, who are making 200, 300 grand a year, want to go to 1 million. And so I started teaching this to people, and I would give them a money back guarantee. If I couldn't double their income within a year, I'd give them their money back, and they had to make a minimum of 200 grand a year. Well, it worked every time. And as I started doing that, I'm like, I better document this with each customer. And like I would charge them 20 grand and teach this to them over 8 weeks. And they'd end up over 3 years getting like a 35, 40 time return on their investment. And so I did about, and this took me a couple of years to do it. But every time I would do it, I'd film the testimonial to verify that it actually happened. And then it sort of evolved to where after I'd done it for a couple of years, I'm like, well, the leverage way for me to move forward is to license my methodology to coaches rather than me doing it. And so that's now what I do. And again, I think the power of the methodology is that it solves the coach's biggest problem, getting clients to consistently do their strategies and the things they're telling them to do. Because most of the times they tell them to do it and the people are inconsistent in doing it, and the coach pulls their hair out. But uh, that was sort of my journey on this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense to basically moving from one-on-one model to a one-to-many model. That's just a smart way for your business, and also just a way to reach more people. So I think it all makes a lot of sense. Well, John, let me switch gears. I want to ask you the questions I ask every guest. The main one being, of course, what is your why? The name of the show is the Know Your Why podcast, and so I think you had a fairly life changing kind of epiphany once you got into your 50s, and I think you've shared that with a lot of people. What keeps you motivated, keeps you moving forward and excited?
Well, I love the name of your podcast, and I love that because in my methodology, that's foundational. In fact, I learned this from Michael Gervais with the Seattle Seahawks, the power of having a personal mission statement that drives you, your why,
Yeah.
and it's got to be emotional. Uh, I could talk about that for an hour, but it's foundationally built into the template. But my why is that I've got something that's life changing, and I feel so blessed for my life that this is how I honor it. This is how I honor my mom for all the advantages she gave me, and my dad as well. And it's pretty simple. I got something life changing, and I want to help as many people as I can. Just to honor them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, with that in mind, how can people reach you when they hear this and they're, kind of excited to learn more?
Well, I've got a special gift for your audience. I've created a 9-minute video that fully explains the secret of Think and Grow Rich and the science behind it. And so all they have to do is go to themissingsecret.org, www.themissingsecret.org, and they can get that video for free. And I think one of the things that I meant to say that I think is powerful that they'll get out of that video is that the differentiator today between the mega successful and the moderately successful is control of self and focus. And you'll see that's what this 12-minute a day technique directly impacts: your focus and your daily actions.
Yeah, that's great.
And maybe one other thing that you'd find interesting is, just imagine this. I think this may put our whole conversation in perspective. Imagine that there's a pill that you can take that makes you more successful, and more successful in your career by causing you to be focused only on what moves the needle and where the right actions are happening automatically, and you have this level of control you've never experienced. And then you see that this pill also impacts your romantic relationship. You have a vision of how you want to be with your significant other, and that happens automatically without thinking. And as you improve in the relationship, surprisingly, and thank God, your spouse or significant other improves as well. And then imagine that this pill impacts your health. You can control your eating, control your exercise in a way you never could before. Well, this pill exists, but you got to take it every day, and it takes 12 minutes a day to swallow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very powerful stuff. I truly appreciate you being on the show and sharing everything with us that you did. I think for me, like I said, the knowledge surrounding some of the science behind this is extremely powerful and kind of enlightening, I would say. So thank you so much for being on the show, John. Thank you for everything that you shared. I'm really grateful for the time today.
Well, thank you. And can I maybe say one thing to your audience as we part ways?
Yeah, sure.
So a few years ago, I became a grandfather, and for the first time. And so the day after my granddaughter was born, Ginger and I go over to my stepdaughter's house, and of course there was a lot of oohing and eyeing with the baby, and Jason, for some reason, they hand me the baby. I don't know why they did, and they walk away. And so I'm holding this precious little girl, and I'm thinking, man, how precious life is. And she's going to live for 100 years. And the quality of her life is going to come down to the thoughts that are going on in her head most of the time. That's going to impact her success and her happiness with her life. And I'm like, I made the commitment right then. I am going to impact the creation of her thoughts and show her how to do this. And so how this relates to your audience is that Your life is precious. Your life is precious. And just think about it. If the next 5 years are like the last 5 years, will you be happy with that? Well, if you're not, then stop winging life. I've now shown you a way to actually do life, to create the life you desire. And again, it only takes 12 minutes a day.
Yeah. Thank you, John. And folks listening, make sure you connect with John. Please like, rate, and review the show. We'll have that website in the show notes. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?